welcome to another episode of Political Talk. I'm Hugo Pellegrino Low, and thank you very much for watching. You have English, Spanish, Portuguese, and even French subtitles in the channel if you prefer. As always, thank you very much for watching today's episode, and please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me what you think of the video. On today's video, I'll be talking about one of the most corrupted senator on the United States history, called Mitch McConnell.
Addison Mitchell McConnell, born February 20th, 1942, is an American politician and retired attorney serving as Senate Minority Leader since 2021 and is a senior United States Senator from Kentucky, a seat he has held since 1985. A member of the Republican Party, he previously served as Senate Majority Leader from 2015 to 2021, and as Minority Leader from 2007 to 2015. According to the Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin, a columnist of the newspaper.
We witnessed a historic confession of hypocrisy and deceit on February 14, 2021, when Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican, Kentucky, went to the floor after voting to acquit Donald Trump in the former president's Senate impeachment trial. McConnell said, former President Trump's actions that preceded the riot on January 6, 2021 were disgraceful dereliction of duty. He added, Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. But McConnell said he couldn't vote to convict because the trial had come too late, after Trump was out of office, even though it was McConnell himself who had kept the Senate out for the remainder of Trump's term. McConnell suggested that a criminal prosecution of Trump could be in the cards, a stunning confession of how he regards the seriousness of the allegations and the extent of the evidence. The only saving grace is that McConnell will be forever remembered as the one who intentionally let someone worthy of criminal investigation get away. It is the height of hypocrisy, said Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, told the Washington Post that McConnell in effect called time, and he's the one who ran out the clock. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat from California, was irate during the post-verdict news conference. It is so pathetic that Senator McConnell kept the Senate shut down so that the Senate could not receive the article of impeachment and has used that as his excuse for not voting to convict Donald Trump. The media figured out what was going on and called him out in unusually blunt terms. Mediate, a political website, recounted the exchange on CNN between Dana Bash and Abby Phillip, anchor from CNN. Dana Bash began the segment talking about Speaker Nancy Pelosi's infuriated tone at a press conference earlier the Saturday before, February 9, 2021, reacting to McConnell's actions. Pelosi was so incensed, so angry, understandably so, said Bash, given the fact that she really would have given the impeachment article to the Senate had she not heard pretty clearly, like we all heard, from Mitch McConnell when he was still in charge of the schedule of the Senate, that he wasn't going to bring them back from recess. But he did it because he wanted to be able to do both things, wanted to be able to say, I don't think we should, vote to convict Trump, but also condemn it, concluded Phillip. You cannot have it both ways on this issue no matter how hard he tries. NBC News' Benji Sarlin observed, by McConnell's own account of Trump's conduct, he decided to let the Senate adjourn rather than agree to consider removing a president who was at that very moment violently threatening the core function of government. The New York Times underscored how McConnell set up the trial on terms that would allow him to then vote to acquit. Democrats were furious, pointing out that their vote to impeach came while Mr. Trump remained in office and that it was Mr. McConnell who refused to call the Senate back into session to start the trial before he, Donald Trump, left office. McConnell, one would think, but consistency is never a barrier for him, cannot object if the Joe Biden administration's Justice Department prosecuted the former president. McConnell no doubt resents Trump for costing him the Senate majority. He likely would be pleased if some prosecutor could do the job for him. The next time someone criticizes the Biden administration for a lack of bipartisanship, remember this episode of McConnell's monstrous hyperpartisanship. The White House will be dealing with a minority leader and a party so lacking in honor, and so willing to disregard the country's interests, that no reasonable person could expect their genuine cooperation or compromise. McConnell has shown none of the above.
If you're getting tired, you can always visit my website or subscribe to Patreon, and you can just grab a glass of water and pause the video.
Another incredible awful thing that McConnell did was last year 2020, after the death of RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. After her death from pancreatic cancer, Mitch McConnell on September 18, 2020. Senator Mitch McConnell vowed late Friday that he would move to put President Trump's nominee to replace Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court, breaking with his 2016 stance and setting the stage for a bruising battle that promised to reverberate through the 2020 elections. Americans re-elected the majority in 2016 and expanded it in 2018 because the people pledged to work with President Trump and support his agenda, particularly his outstanding appointments to the federal judiciary, Mr. McConnell said in a statement issued not long after news of Justice Ginsburg's death became public. Once again, we will keep our promise. President Trump's nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. It was a stark turnabout from his position in 2016 when McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, and, in that moment, the majority leader, reacted to the death of Justice Antonin Scalia by declaring that a successor should await the outcome of the presidential election, and then proceeded to block President Barack Obama's nominee, Judge Merrick B. Garland. Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, and the then minority leader, sought to remind Mr. McConnell of that former position minutes after the news of Justice Ginsburg's death, saying in a tweet, "The American people should have a voice in the selection of their next Supreme Court justice. Therefore, this vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president." His words were not accidental. They were a verbatim recitation of what Mr. McConnell said in his surprising announcement in February 2016 immediately after Justice Scalia's death. But Mr. McConnell has already made it abundantly clear that shame is not a consideration when it comes to his unbridled efforts to pack the judiciary with conservative jurists named by then ex-President Donald Trump, and the Supreme Court is certainly no exception. Hours before Justice Ginsburg's death was announced, Lisa Murkowski told an Alaska radio station that she would not vote to confirm a Supreme Court nominee before Election Day. "We are 50-some days away from an election," she told Alaska Public Media. Chuck Grassley, who led the Judiciary Committee in 2016, has also said that he would not conduct Supreme Court confirmation hearings in a presidential election year after the way Republicans blockaded the Garland nomination. But Lindsey Graham, a South Carolina senator, not Mr. Grassley, is now chairman of the panel. Mitch McConnell argued that he had not reversed his position. The difference, he has said, is that in 2020's case, the same party controlled both the Senate and the White House, as opposed to 2016, when Democrats held the presidency and Republicans the Senate. But at the time, that was not a main element of the Republican argument. Their case was that a presidential election was gearing up and the voters should decide who gets to fill that seat. In the end, RBG's death prompted the then-President Trump to persuade the Republicans to choose Amy Coney Barrett, appointment by ex-President Donald Trump, unserved since October 27, 2020. She was a United States Circuit Judge on the United States Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit from 2017 to 2020. Her nomination was controversial due to Senate Republicans' previous refusal to hold hearings for Merrick Garland during an election year, with a divided government in 2016, claims that Republicans were rushing to fill the vacancy, and Ginsburg's own wish for her replacement not to be chosen until a new president is installed the next month. The United States Senate voted 52-48 to confirm her nomination, with Democrats unanimous in opposition.
She is a person that is against abortion, and I'm just starting to mention a few of her issues, but you always can search more about her. And on the day of her nomination, she was part of a super COVID-19 spreading nomination that was held by former President Donald Trump. And yes, she will stay on the Supreme Court for the rest of her freaking life. Considering she's 49 years old, that is indeed a hell of a long time. And for a matter of fact, all over the United States of America and even the globe, there are other candidates who think they can literally just ignore the law. For example, California has a candidate that said he will not accept being defeated. According to the New York Times,
Sacramento, a Republican-led bid to recall Governor Gavin Newsom of California ended in a decisive defeat on Tuesday, as Democrats, in the nation's most populous state, closed ranks against a small grassroots movement that accelerated with the spread of COVID-19. Larry Elder, a conservative talk radio host, led 46 challengers hoping to become the next governor, but Californians strongly affirmed their support for Mr. Newsom in a special election that cost the state an estimated $276 million. The Associated Press called the race for Mr. Newsom, who had won in a 62% landslide in 2018, less than an hour after the polls closed on Tuesday. About 65% of the nearly 9 million ballots counted by 1 a.m. Pacific Time said the governor should stay in office. Since early this year, when it became clear that the recall would have the money and time to qualify for the ballot, Mr. Newsom campaigned relentlessly. Noting that Mr. Elder had built a career bashing liberal causes, the governor painted him as a Trump clone who would foist far-right policies on a state that has been a bastion of liberal thinking. Vote no, and go, the governor told voters, suggesting that they stick to voting against recalling him, and not even dignify the second question on the ballot, which asked who should replace Mr. Newsom if the recall succeeds. Millions of voters chose not to answer the second question, with Mr. Elder receiving nearly half of the vote from those who did. As of early Wednesday morning, Kevin Paffrath, a Democrat, had received about 10% of the vote, and Kevin Faulconer, a Republican and former mayor of San Diego, had garnered about 9%.
So people, for crying out loud, next time you are actually voting, please remember that your vote does count for what you need for a senator, a governor, a congressional person, a president, and even if you're voting for a mayor. make a research of the candidate you're gonna vote, and please don't only believe on exactly what you think is appropriate for you. Be sure the candidate is not gonna be an idiot that is incapable of doing anything properly at all. Don't buy these quote-unquote alternative truths so easily. Most, if not all, of these candidates are actually trying to BS their way in. As always, thank you for watching today's video, and if you have any doubts at all, you can always email me at hugo.loh@gmail.com. Next week, we'll be talking about Amy Coney Banner, so please don't forget to subscribe to the channel.